Hey folks, Robbie Payne with Chrome Unboxed here, coming at you today with a slightly unique versus video. We have in front of us today the Acer C720 i3 model with 2 gigs of RAM, the ASUS C300 Baytrail 2 gigs of RAM, and the HP 14 Celeron Haswell class 4 gigs of RAM. So while the HP 14, because of its more having more RAM, maybe a little bit better at multitasking. Actually, it's quite a bit better at multitasking. We'll leave that kind of off the table today because that's not exactly fair with it having double the RAM capacity. And I will tell you, across the three of them, it having 4 gigs of RAM and having used a C720 before with 4 gigs of RAM, if you're into multitasking, having 6 to 8 tabs, some music, some Hangouts, that kind of stuff, and maybe Ubuntu running on the other side of things, 4 gigs of RAM is a necessity. If you're not into doing that, if you're going to open up 1 or 2 tabs and that's all you're going to do, the RAM comparison thing kind of goes out the window. So just keep that in mind. We're not going to compare that because that's not exactly a fair comparison across the three of these devices today. If you have any questions about that stuff, hit me up in the comments or on Google+. We can talk more about that. Or you can look at the other individual reviews of these units on the channel and see kind of a little bit more in depth on those kind of things. But for today, I don't really want to get into that because it's just not fair across the board here. So we're going to do a few things. I'm going to try to keep this relatively short, but I want to show you a couple different processing things that we see between these guys. And so one, I've got Angry Birds loaded up here in front for everybody, and I'm hoping you can see this. I'm hoping you'll be able to pick this up on the video. If not, I apologize, but it's as good as we can get it for right now. So I'm going to maximize all three of these. And so we'll start with the Acer first. And you can see, I'm going to zoom in, zoom out. You can see all the camera work stuff is all nice and fluid. I'm going to grab the bird. I'm going to drop a bunch of frames. Still got little birds hopping around, the pigs snorting, all that kind of stuff. Fire the bird. You can see all the pieces being rendered and moving. This is where Angry Birds takes a toll on the processor because it's got to figure out all the physics of each piece based on what you do, obviously. So it's a good test for processors. And so no problem whatsoever there. So I'm going to move on to that guy and let him load. We're going to take a step down. So the i3 technically is the highest ranking processor. We're going to take one step down to the Celeron, which in my estimation doesn't really feel day-to-day any slower than the i3. So we're going to look here. Good frame rates there. Guys are still jumping around, no problems. Let's see how we do when we fly. All the pieces rendering nice and smooth. I did notice when he flew a slight frame rate drop, but not bad. And as the camera pans back over, no real frames drop there either. So we're doing pretty good there. And all the stuff animating over here looks pretty good. So we're going to move on to the next one. And lastly, here's Baytrail. We'll do some zooming. Actually, zoom down here. We'll zoom in. And all those panning things are happening really nicely, nice and smooth on the camera work there. Grab the bird, and no real loss of frames here, which is good. And then we'll fly. Definitely lower frame rate on the pieces. You can tell as things move. Again, I don't know if you can tell it in the video, but you can tell there's, it's the difference when you look at something that's in 30 frames and something that's in 60 frames per second. Everything just doesn't look like crazy buttery smooth. So let's move on to the next level. There's a little bit more stuff, a little bit more moving parts. Again, we'll take the zoom. Everything looks good here. And I don't like this level. Never have. Nope, didn't quite get it. Okay. In this one, you can already see I just saw this bird jump, and as he was coming down, he kind of slowed down and fell. I'm just going to shoot him right at the pigs, and we're seeing some pretty good jumping around here. Again, frame rates dropped. And then let's try the Celeron, see how he does. Oh, it's a terrible shot. Let's try this again. There we go, lots of moving stuff that time. And again, no real frame rate drops here either. So, I mean, this is obviously isn't showing a whole lot, but, rendering some basic game graphics. I would say the i3 and the Celeron are probably neck and neck there, with the Baytrail coming in behind it on its ability to render. I did want to play for you just speaker loudness, because when I'm looking across these three again, this is a versus video, and basically we're talking about hardware internally, but might as well talk about it externally. The i3 is definitely, the build quality is the worst. When I look across the three monitors, it's the poorest looking one just to the eye. The keyboard is the mushiest by far, and the trackpad is the least responsive by far. So hardware-wise, I would say the HP 14 is the best overall hardware. The monitor is the most pleasing to look at. The keyboard's fantastic. The trackpad's fantastic. Over here, the monitor is good. I think it would be better if it was not matte finish, but that suits some people. They're going to be in situations where they need to keep light reflection down. So it is matte display, which gives it kind of just a blah look to me when I'm looking at them. So that aside, though, the keyboard is great. Trackpad's fantastic on this one. Very quiet, nice and large, very smooth. So I want to show you just a real quick comparison with their speaker volumes. So we'll crank this one up all the way. Pretty thin, but I don't think any of us are surprised on that. Acer is definitely louder, if that makes any difference. It's louder. It doesn't really sound any better, but... I was left to my own. The overall sound of the ASUS is definitely better. There's a lot more roundness to the tone that comes out of it. HP seems about as loud as the Acer, again, which loudness really isn't the point here, but I will say the roundness of tone actually sounds best in the ASUS. None of them have a low end to them, but it's not as harsh sounding. I know most of you know laptop speakers have that just kind of crass harshness. The ASUS rounds it out a little bit, so thumbs up on the speakers there. Like I said, they're all running 1366 by 768 native resolution, and the HP wins out as far as the look there. All three of them have HDMI outlets. You can run them to a better monitor if you so choose. Next thing we are going to do is load up a couple different heavy websites so you kind of see. So we're going to do The Verge and Google+. Okay, so having loaded them up, let's look at Verge first. And we're just going to look at a two-finger scroll. Kind of keep our eye on the frame rates and how things work. When we go faster, this thing, we're getting checkerboarding. i3 is looking good. Feels pretty smooth. Slide over to Google Plus and do the same thing. And a couple stops, a couple hiccups there, but overall, pretty smooth. Take a step down, look at the HP. On The Verge, we're still loading some in on it. It was the last one, so we'll let it keep going. And we'll come over here, and we'll see closer to what we see on an ARM, not quite as bad. Where the overall scrolling, you should be able to see the difference in that. Or I can actually see all the content scrolling here. Here it jumps. It's doing better now, a little bit. And I have to say, I mean, again, I'm not expecting the world out of Baytrail, so sometimes it surprises me. Let's check out Google Plus. Almost every scroll gets one little hiccup. But oh, come on. Overall, not terrible. Not unusable. So I mean, if you're actually reading it, you'd kind of be scrolling at this pace, kind of looking through articles. Everything looks good. And then let's go ahead and bring up Facebook as well. I don't use Facebook that often, so I'm not signed in. Okay, while those are loading, look over here. Smoothness here is obviously really good. I've done this before on this device, but just to show you again. I will say that i3, maybe I don't know, maybe not. A slight bit smoother in the overall scrolling. It just handles Google Plus just fine. So again, I keep not seeing a whole lot of performance difference between the Core i3 and the Celeron. I see a lot of similarities between the two of them, to be honest with you. And Facebook tends to be a bit of a heavy site too, so come on, let's go back up. A little janky there, but again, not unusable. And we'll sign it over here as well. And hopefully you're getting an idea of rendering speeds between the two as I'm clicking, and especially the i3 and the Celeron, that's kind of really where the competition really lies. We all know Baytrail is not going to quite live up to these guys as far as raw processing power. A couple stutters here and there. Things are still loading in. So here, Facebook wants me to chat. I don't want to chat. And fair enough. We're getting some stutters over here as things again are as we scroll down are starting to load in. But again, none of them unusable. And a bump over Baytrail, but again, it's use case, guys. It's what stuff you're going to be doing on them. Let's see. It's probably time to go ahead and run Octane. So to get a fresh look at Octane, we definitely want to completely shut these guys down. Come on. And reload them so we don't have Ubuntu running in the background. We don't have anything else going on. So we're going to bring them all down. And I'm going to attempt to bring them up as quickly as I can together. Make sure we're all off. And let's try this. I don't think I can do this. So I'm going to do these two together. And go. And we saw a little slightly faster boot speed on the i3. I'm trying to kind of hide what I'm doing here so you don't see. All right. I'll boot it up, make sure we don't have any extras running. Nothing there. Let's go. Screen brightness is back up. And likely, if you're looking into these things, you've probably seen these run, but you want to have them side by side on the same internet connection, all having been freshly restarted so that you could see exactly what we're looking at here. And yes, the i3 was the last one to actually get the page pulled up, but it likely will end up catching up and winning this. We'll see. We'll run it a couple times too, because we just restarted, so we want to make sure that everything's on as level of a playing field as it can be. If you watch the reviews of these three units individually, you'll know kind of my thoughts across each one of them. And you know, the HP 14 always gets a nod for me because it ends up being the one that I keep. I mean, I could just choose to keep one of these other ones and sell the other at this point, you know, and sell the HP and kind of make up my losses if I felt like it was a better device. And you see the i3 did end up catching up. Now 14.5, that's nice, but 11.2 is actually nice there. A lot of times we get 10,000 on the Celeron devices, and then 7,200, which I just did this review not too long ago, and that's close to what I got on the ASUS as well. So what you're seeing here literally is doubled ability by the Acer over the ASUS to perform. So that is an impressive bump. What's not as impressive as this. While 3,000 points is, on paper, that's a lot. What it turns out is that in day-to-day performance, it doesn't make that much difference. And the same would be true when I had the Pixel and running benchmarks on it, and it could just blow things out of the water. That's nice. But day-to-day, did the Pixel feel that much faster than my HP? Not really. Not really at all. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm going to run one more game for you just to show you that not all benchmarks aren't exactly the same. And this is called Murder Files. I use it a lot of times in reviews because it's not blowing anybody away with its graphic prowess by any means, but it's a nice 3D rendered game. It's loud. And we obviously probably could be running multiple things, and you can see this in the review of the ASUS, that when I've got a tab open in the background, this intro scene here, as it's rendering all this, kind of starts struggling, dropping frames. But as soon as I close everything else down, and it can focus all its prowess on this, then it's fine. Which shows me that, well, we may be able to multitask better on something with a little more horsepower. That this device, if you're doing single tasks, is up to the task. I mean, it really is on a lot of things. Again, is it going to replace your work notebook? Probably not, because multitasking is where it fails. But you're seeing across the board here, all three of these guys are rendering all this 3D landscape at 60 frames a second. Stuff is smooth. Stuff's painting. There's all kinds of rendered images. There's all kinds of things moving and interacting here, and all three of them are handling it just fine. So, you know, we looked at Octane and we saw some pretty sizable differences between all of them. We looked at some different websites and we saw, okay, you know, ultimately the Baytrail does suffer a little bit, but we're coming to a point, and we're starting to get to a point in these processors and with Chrome that we're seeing some of the lower end processors being able to really pull off some impressive stuff and get some crazy battery, which makes me all the more excited about the upcoming Tegra K1 from Acer, the K1 Chromebook. So the Chromebook 13 is what they're calling it. It should be out in the next couple of weeks. I'm very excited about it because I'm starting to see a little bit of convergence here. Because Chrome OS, one of the best parts about it is it's not supposed to take a ton of hardware to push it, right? I mean, that's supposed to be part of the appeal, is that we can have computers with lower end specs, so they can spend a little bit more money on hardware. So you're getting a nicer overall device and experience for way less money than you would on other platforms. Well, the moment you start saying, well, we need an i5 in this bad boy to run, or we need a Core i7 to make sure we can play such and such stuff, you're kind of blowing the charm of Chrome OS out just a little bit. But when we see Chrome OS running pretty well on something like a Baytrail, which is meant for a tablet or something like that, or as again, I'm keeping my fingers crossed for the upcoming Acer Chromebook 13, that it just like really kills it, because I want to see mobile architectures working for mainline computing. I want to be able to say, yeah, I work completely from basically a tablet with a keyboard and a screen on it. I can take care of the things I need to take care of with really compact, thin line, fanless, all day battery, hardware. I would love to be able to say that. I'd love to think that, yeah, there's a Core i5 or Core i7 model of such and such available, but it's not necessary. I don't have to have that in order to have a great experience on Chrome. Is Baytrail there? In my opinion, not quite, but it's much closer than the ARM. Either the Exynos 5 or the Exynos Octa that is in the Samsung Chromebook 2. Both of those are pretty sluggish, and actually on regular single things, like if I'm just going to Facebook, I'm just going to Google Plus, or I'm just going to The Verge or Engadget or something, any of those heavier websites, I'm just going to those things. They still struggled with them. Whereas Baytrail is kind of saying, hey, look, if we keep it in reason here, I can pull off most things. These guys on the outside are still saying, hey, we can do lots of stuff. We're very capable. But I'm looking forward to the day when, and I think it feels like it's coming sooner than later, that we're going to start seeing mobile optimized chipsets that can absolutely take on the older x86 architecture, because ARM is such a fantastic architecture. I love mobile phones and tablets, and I love the form factors. I love the fanless design. I love the battery life. And I love the idea that we might be able to start seeing those perform and stepping toe-to-toe with the x86 architecture sometime soon. It's just an interesting time in computing in general, for chipsets, for Chromebooks, for where Chrome OS is headed. And so hopefully some of this helped if you're considering any of these devices, if you're considering this guy and going, I don't know if it really matches up, or I want to temper my expectations. Or if you're looking at the i3 saying, hey, I was hoping it was just going to blow everything out of the water, and it's not that much greater. I was going to actually run Skid Racer on here. The last 2 weeks, I can't get Skid Racer to load. The website just sits and loads, and I tried it across all three of these and a couple other Chromebooks as well. Never have gotten it to load again. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, so I wasn't able to run that. Presumably, it runs decently on this. We see some frame rate drops. It would probably choke up this and probably run really smooth on this, because I know that was one thing that they showed at the press release when the i3 was announced. So if you guys have any other questions, I've got to be sending these guys back. These guys are going back. I'm holding on to the HP14 for now. So if you need a winner or something like that, overall for me, day to day, a winner is the HP14, because we're talking more hardware, overall user experience. The HP14 wins hands down over these guys. But performance-wise, I think if we had 4 gigs of RAM in this guy, he would be the winner performance-wise, just edging out the Celeron and definitely beating the Baytrail. But that's instead of stacking things, this is great, this is medium, this is terrible. It's more like this is really good, this is pretty good, and this is mediocre. So it seems like the playing field is condensing, and we're seeing some convergence here. So that's a very good thing. Hopefully that's just going to drive down prices and amp up performance as time goes on. Guys, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And also, check out the other videos in the feed. And leave me any questions, comments, any of that kind of stuff in the comment section or on Google Plus if you like. I'll try to get back to those as soon as I can. I get a lot of those questions, and I try to field them kind of in chunks once a week or so, and try to get back to you guys on that stuff when I can. So until next time, have a great one.